are the Insiders, and man, are we excited to be here today.
It's a party, baby! Remember Hulk Hogan. We're going to talk about his legacy. We're going to talk about the controversies, everything in between. So, get ready for your comments and opinions in chat. Please do so respectfully, I ask. So, play this, and then we'll be back on the other side.
California. And thank God, Mean Gene, I got my pump back, man. You know, the pythons are ready. The largest arms in the world. And I'm glad they are because I checked. Train, say your prayers, eat your vitamins, be true to yourself, true to your country, be a real American. Whew.
I'll tell you, and I've said this on our show many times. When I hear Real American, it's like when I was younger and watching, I would get chills up my spine whenever I'd hear that music. Look, I have listened to a lot of podcasts over the past 4 or 5 days, and because I was curious, probably like a lot of you were. As to how this was going to be taken, because and I think Bully Ray may have put it in a good light, saying that of late Terry Bollea wasn't maybe the greatest person, but Hulk Hogan was so integral and such a force and a person who made wrestling what it is today. And that also does, same sentiment came from Mark Henry. So many people. And then, of course, Triple H's speech. And I'll tell you what got me, seeing poor Jimmy Hart sobbing his eyes out, standing in front of that line. And you could see, those two were extremely close. And so, look, I get it. When people get older, and they age and they go through a lot and they go through surgeries and they, and I'm not saying that's an excuse for anybody to act poorly, but, I think we want to dwell on what he did for professional wrestling. And if we don't look back at it that way, it's a disservice to him. Because I have seen moments with him that I will never forget. That Andre the Giant still that Jeff had up there with him and Andre, that is still my number one wrestling show that I've ever watched. It cost us $99 to get it with that little tuner that you had to buy for your TV. It was the first wrestling pay-per-view I ever watched. And that was incredible to see. Incredible to see. And I'll never forget it. I will never forget that. And Hogan was such he not only championed wrestling, but he merged it into Hollywood. He was on talk shows. He was on all that stuff that Triple H showed it, and it was true. And all of them said that, he was the one that went campaigning for the sport around to everyone. And you know, so he did so much for the sport. You know, my God, ESPN came out and said that he was the most integral thing in pro wrestling. Without him, pro wrestling that we know today doesn't exist. So yeah, man. Look, he is undeniably. Undeniably, we talk about Mount Rushmore, Jeff, how many times on this show, right?
Yeah.
He is undeniably on Mount Rushmore. Undeniably. You can't not have him there. And is everybody always going to be a great person? No. And he made some really dumb mistakes, and mostly recently. But it still doesn't say about him what he did. And you know what? When he was in the Hulkamania times, he was great with kids. He would go visit kids in the hospital, much like John Cena did. He would, you know, he always was doing things for kids and things like that back then. So, yeah, you know, I'll be the first one to admit how important he was. And they are all right. All those wrestlers who said that they owe a great deal to Hulk Hogan. A lot of them said they owe their careers to Hulk Hogan. In fact, Mark, I had a chuckle because Mark Henry said he kind of wished he listened to his advice because Hulk was telling him, because he saw Mark was using the leg drop. And he said, I'm going to tell you, brother. He said, I destroyed 2 of my hips doing that move, so you just better be careful. And Mark said, you know, I didn't listen. And he said, and now I'm having hip problems and hip surgeries and all that kind of stuff too. So yeah, you know, I'll never forget those times. And it was a big part of my life. Wrestling was back then. And you know, I looked forward to every time I saw him battle, whether it was Andre or whether it was King Kong Bundy. How many times did they battle on Saturday night's main event? Sid Vicious. Hulk took on all the big dudes, all the big guys. And then what about Rocky III? Thunder Lips, right? I mean, you know, come on. That was even before, like, you know, Rocky was already pretty big, but Hogan wasn't even that big during that. So yeah, it's just look, we have to say thank you to him for what he did, just like all the wrestlers do, for what he did for pro wrestling. So
yeah. I think you know, I echo a lot of those sentiments. I think if you were a kid or a teenager in the 80s and you grew up during that time, you either loved Hogan or you didn't like him, but at some point you probably were a fan of his. I know that I had my Flintstones vitamins and I said my prayers because of you know, he was like a real life action figure come to life. It was like a superhero.
Yep.
On screen every time you saw him, and then you'd see him in movies and TV shows, commercials, talk shows. Those would be the times that your parents would let you stay up long enough to watch Johnny Carson or something like that when he would be on there. So yeah, you know, his what he did in terms of the business, and we'll get into the controversies and stuff next, but what he did for the business, it can't be understated. He elevated the business in a way that I don't think people truly understand, or maybe they do, but they just undersell it because of the man behind the character. But the character of Hulk Hogan, I mean, my goodness, you can't. He was synonymous with wrestling in the 80s and 90s, and I mean, even now, you talk to a random person on the street who maybe hasn't watched wrestling since they were a kid, and maybe they're in their 50s or 60s now, they know who Hulk Hogan is. So, all right, because I know a lot of people are bouncing around. I wanted to start this one off, Joe, because I want to be
Yep.
I want to be like unequivocal
Yep.
about what I want to say.
Hmm.
I think when it comes to people, characters, um, we have to be able to, at some point, separate the character from the person. Um, there are a lot of athletes, a lot of actors, a lot of musicians, a lot of people that I've enjoyed their work and their art over the years, but we hear stories about despicable things that they've done. Um, Hulk Hogan going on a N-word laced tirade with someone. I lost a ton of respect for him that day. Um, Being a racist is not okay, and it's not a little thing. It's really inexcusable. Um, I just hope and pray that he, I mean, he said in the last year or so in his life that he, you know, became a Christian, dedicated his life to the Lord. And I hope that that's the case. And I hope that he repented, because what a lot of people don't realize is Hulk Hogan was beloved by the black community. Beloved. So you take someone like that who brought Mr. T along with them on WWE events and everything, and what Mr. T meant to a lot of us growing up. And you get this guy who you feel like, man, he's cool. He's cool with us. And then years later, you get this audio of him just using the N word all willy nilly and like it's a part of his daily vocabulary. And you find out that maybe that's what he thinks. And it was like, it's like being a part of a movie and the twist ending happens to you at the very end. And that's kind of how it felt, for a lot of us. Um, I don't excuse what he said, and I don't excuse his racism because it needs to be called to the carpet. But and I think the key is for me and for a lot of people, what we need to do is we need to learn how to forgive. Because I think I said this on Thursday. Hulk Hogan is not the only person, and not the only person that's white or not a person of color to have said that word. We just don't have audio of it. Um, Many of us, if some of the things that we've said, maybe not racist, but maybe we've said something that's derogatory or demeaning towards a certain group of people. If that's happened and somebody caught that on audio, how would you be perceived? Because I know a lot of people make mistakes, but then when somebody else in the public eye makes them, they tend to like just pour all the vitriol towards that person. And rightfully so. I'm not taking up for Hulk Hogan and what he said because it's vile and disgusting. But we also have to understand, hopefully he grew as a person. Hopefully, and I know a lot of people were not happy with his apology, or if you thought it was an apology or not. I get that too. Because trust me, I was pissed for years. Like I used to, anytime I would see Hogan, I mean you pop because it's Hulk Hogan. But after all of that, that stopped for me. And it was just okay, I respect him because of what he's done for the business. Um, but I just feel like it's a deeper discussion that's not a wrestling discussion in terms of why people feel the way that they feel about him. And I'm not going to say to anybody, hey, you got to drop how you feel about him. All I'm going to say is this: and we'll talk about this more too, but there's a time and a place to have those types of conversations about how vile a person is. I just didn't agree with having those conversations the day that he died. Just my opinion. But Judge, what are your thoughts on the controversies over the years? Because I mean, that's not the only one.
No, I mean certainly not. And if you look at I'll be honest. That incident that you just so eloquently spoke about really lowered my opinion and put me off to him. And the more recent actions of his, shall I say, political beliefs and all of that kind of stuff. I got tired of seeing his beer commercials. I didn't even want to see those anymore. And because, I felt that it was just silly and foolish and so yeah, it was quite disappointing. And look, who would have thought that we would get a show where Hulk Hogan would appear and get rousingly booed, and not because he was wearing the black and white. He got booed out of an arena. And I don't know that he could ever say that ever happened to him ever when he wasn't playing a heel.
Yeah. And unfortunately, that was his last appearance.
Yes, it was.
In WWE.
Very
unfortunately.
Yep. And the people let it be known. We don't want to see him anymore. We don't want him back. We don't want to see him anymore. And, like I said, I got turned off to him a lot, for those incidents and for, all the other stuff that I saw him saying on campaign trails and things like that, which I thought were spewing nonsense. We're not going to get into that. Everybody can have their own views for that kind of thing. But yeah, that's why I think when you're hearing people mention it, and that comment that Bully made about how, Terry wasn't great, especially recently. And, it just, that kind of stuff is a shame. And, look, I would never, ever begrudge anybody for being disappointed to the point of where, look, I'm never going to be a fan of this guy. I'm never going to like him. It's almost like being betrayed.
Completely understand that.
Yeah, absolutely. I can completely understand that feeling.
I just think that for us, and this may be corny to some, maybe this will ring true for people who've been in therapy, but I've learned to forgive. I didn't say forget. I said forgive. I've forgiven because holding on to that, I mean, Terry Bollea, Hulk Hogan, he didn't know me from a can of paint. So my opinion doesn't matter. But I'm sure that he realized I'm trying to think of the correct word, but there's a certain level of responsibility you carry when you're a public figure, especially someone like him. And, like, he let us down. So I've learned to forgive that. Personally, I know some people are like, well, maybe it was a bad day. I'm sorry, but racism doesn't just come out like when you stub your toe or something. It's kind of deep. It's deep seated. It's not like, oh shit, I stubbed my toe and then let me use a racial slur. It's not like that. So the people that are like, oh, he made a minor mistake. It's a little bit deeper than that. But again, I think we have to get to the point where it's like, okay, the person behind the character, not a fan of his, but like Swag Fan just said, who am I to judge? Ultimately, I know that if I'm a believer, I'm a Christian, even though I just said a bad word, I'm sorry. But I know that when I die, I'm going to have to account for what I've done. And if I haven't repented, then that's not good. And that's between me and God, so that's who I have to answer for my sins to. And he does too. So again, that's just me. But Joe, moving away, this still kind of a controversy, but some of the reports on his health of his kind of final months and days were all over the place. You had one camp saying that he was not well, and then you had other people saying, "Oh, he's doing great." What did you make of all of that? And same question to the chat.
I think we live in an age now where you're going to get all this kind of stuff from people that think they're in the know. Oh my God, I heard so many different stories. I heard a story that said that he had multiple back surgeries recently. And then I heard that he was in a coma from the surgeries that he had most recently. And that's when he died. But then I found out that he died at home. And I'm like, I don't kind of think a hospital would have let a guy go home if he was in a coma. It's so hard to know, right? What's true and what's not, and what comes out and what doesn't. And especially when it comes to celebrities, because again, you're going to get all these TMZ, reports about people, and this. To be honest, and this goes back to me with Bray too. I hate to say this, and maybe it's going to come off as sounding mean. It's none of our business. It's none of our business. If the man is truly sick, dying, whatever the case might be, that's between him and his family and his friends. That we don't need to know anything about it. We don't ever need to find out anything about it. Because the fact of the matter is he's gone. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how it happened or why it happened or anything. It doesn't matter. He's gone. And it's just like, when Bray passed and how sad we all were and devastated we all were. And all we wanted to find out was why. What happened? What was the answer? What caused this? But you know what? It didn't matter. And none of us found out until they put the video out and how he had, he had some kind of thing going wrong where he wasn't breathing properly. And then, and then for whatever reason, he didn't put the heart monitor on, and he went and took a nap. And it was that simple. He passed away. Look, Jeff's a religious guy. I've grown up in religion. When it's your time, and no matter what you believe in, if that comes calling for you, it's your time. It honestly, all this kind of stuff and stories and this and that and whatever the other thing, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. He's gone. Right. And it doesn't matter why. But I think what we have to realize, Jeff, and you were mentioning the stuff earlier on the previous segment part. I just wanted to add one little quick thing to that too.
Yeah.
Ozzy Osbourne, for as many people that mourned him, let me tell you something about Ozzy. Ozzy wasn't a great guy all the time either. Did you all know that Ozzy tried to kill his own wife? It's true. I mean, she came out and told the story. So not everybody is going to have shining moments in the sun. We've all had, myself included. I've had very low points in my life. We all have. That doesn't excuse it. Like Jeff said, that doesn't pardon it if you do something that hurts someone else. There are things that I've done that hurt some people that I've known, friends that I don't speak to anymore, that I'm going to regret maybe for the rest of my life. And I hate that. I'm trying at this point in my life at 55 to remedy some of that. Like there's my best man at my wedding and I haven't spoken in 20 some years. And him and I were like best friends. And to this day, I find myself wondering why. I don't like that. So yeah, but yeah, Jeff, when it comes down to like information like this, like I said, this kind of stuff is only really should be between himself and his family and his friends. We don't need to know. All we need to know is that he's gone.
Right. And I think for the folks who were putting out stories or trying to put out stories, I mean, I get that you want to make money and that you want to get clicks and all that stuff, but at what cost? I mean, why is that important for us to know? I mean, when it comes to people and their final days or just their personal lives in general, we don't need to know every time they make a move. We don't need to know all the details. It's none of our business. And the arrogance of the entitlement of fans, it blows my mind. Like we don't need to know. Like I get that you want to know when your favorites are coming back, but why they had to leave is not really your business.
Mm-hmm.
It's not my business. They're people just like us. They hurt, they bleed, they grieve, they go through things just like the rest of us. Them having that ability to be able to be a human being and have that space, I don't think people really understand how important that is. So, whether Hulk Hogan was on his deathbed like it was reported several weeks ago, or whether he was completely healthy and this was just completely out of nowhere, it's none of our business. He deserved the opportunity to live his life how he wants to live it with whatever consequences, and we didn't need to know his medical information. Nothing. It's not like any of us knowing would have changed anything. Like none of us could have done anything to change the outcome, unfortunately.
Yep. I think sometimes, Jeff, we think, and this is not with just wrestlers, but this is like with celebrities as a whole. I think we just think that we're entitled to get all the information that we can about every one of them, that we should know what they do, where they are, what they're doing. And that's just not true. That's just not true. And it goes with anything, entertainment industry, wrestling, even like pro sports. People are obsessed sometimes with athletes that they like and things like that. And they just think that they should be open and to I mean, we see it all the time, right? How many times have we spoke on our show in our grievances section about women wrestlers that get crap all the time from people that are just up in their grill and that they're following them around and they think that they should be, that's not how we should be. It's fine to have heroes. It's fine to be interested in people's careers and stuff like that, but that doesn't give us the right, just because we're a fan, to know every little thing about them. It doesn't give us that right. We're not family. We're not related. We're not any of that. That's, think about it if you were, and I know this is a hard perspective to get, but think about it if you were on the other side of that. Think about if you were the one who had someone pass away, or close to you, and then all of a sudden, let's say maybe your father or mother was a prominent like political figure, or your father or mother was prominent in your community, right? And then all of a sudden you have reporters calling. You're getting tweets, you're getting Facebook messages. Oh, tell us what happened. What happened? We just saw them the other day. They were fine. Oh my God, what happened? But you wouldn't want to do that. You wouldn't want to have to deal with that. So we have to try as human beings to think about their family and their friends and stuff like that and what they're going through.
Right. Even, and I just want to add to this while I have this topic up on screen. Even if you dislike the person, you hate the person, quote unquote, don't do it for that person. Think about the people that they're leaving behind.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can tell you, just talking about the topic that I have on screen right now, I saw so much on social media that I was shocked. Like I was shocked to see people being attacked and called names and having things said to them because they were not like, I hate the dude, good that he's gone, that kind of thing. You had people that were like, listen, I'm going to choose to compartmentalize. Terry Bollea, probably not a nice dude. He had some views I didn't agree with. He was hateful towards people from the audio that we heard. Terry Bollea very well could have changed before he passed away. Hulk Hogan, a giant, an icon in the wrestling business. That's how some people chose to do it, and other people were like, well, no, you got to go in, you got to go hard in the paint, you got to call out, and yeah, I agree, you got to hold people accountable, but I also think just taking that little bit of time to be like, well, on the day that he passed away, is today the day that I want to post some of these videos and memes and all these different things when his family, who may not share the same views that he did, might be looking. I know if I looked at social media and if someone said something like that about my mother or my father, I know how it'd make me feel.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's, I was just surprised to see as many people though, like getting really upset with folks talking about his legacy as Hulk Hogan and not necessarily being focused on the controversy and the stuff that he said.
I think that people like that, Jeff, just look, I get it. I get people being mad. I get people being upset. But when does it, when do you get to the point of where your empathy kind of takes over a little bit, and you start to think about that person's family, that person's friends, and that person's children, and all that, and Jeff, you know what,
not for that person, but for their family.
Right.
Sorry.
Right.
Go ahead.
No, it's okay. Yeah. And kind of think to yourself, how would it be as if, you were going through that. And yeah, it's just, that's what we kind of have to just remember, that there's other people involved. And, but yeah, so I don't know. I think, yeah, but we're going to move on. And, it's tough. Look, I've grown up to see a lot of people who I considered heroes too throughout the years, that have not necessarily turned out to be great people. Sometimes, there's that saying, Jeff, I don't know, I'm probably too old to even remember now, but there's that saying is, be careful, who you idolize, because sometimes when you meet that person, and if you ever do get a chance to meet them in real life, you may not like them at all, because you're seeing a completely different side of them when you're seeing them in a movie or in a wrestling ring or something else. And you might not really like that person much at all when you do finally meet them. So, and it's true. So,
right. Yeah. I think, just to kind of, for me, just to wrap this up, I think I've been pretty clear, but The way I'm choosing to deal with this is I'm compartmentalizing. Hulk Hogan was a character that I looked up to, huge icon in wrestling. Wrestling wouldn't be what it is today without his contributions.
Nope.
Terry, I pray for him.
Mm-hmm.
I pray that he, repented and had a relationship with the Lord. And yeah, I really hope he had a change of heart, because I don't get racism. I don't get it. I mean, I know why it happens. I don't understand how people can be so narrow-minded and hateful to hate people based on the color of their skin. I don't get it. Like, I don't know how people can be that way when we all bleed the same. I mean, we're all human beings. But I know that for me anyway, instead of this letting me do something that I never want to do, which is hate someone, I use it I think for me, as an opportunity to say, okay, one day I'm not going to be here. How do I handle relationships? How do I handle treating people? How do I handle all of those things from now until whenever it's my time? Because the last thing that you want as a person is for people to be like, man, yeah, dude was a crappy person. Like, he was really an awful being. That's not the legacy that you want to leave. So, yeah, that's just.
Yep. Yeah, and again, said very eloquently. I don't really have too much more to say on the topic, and it's just I'm kind of trying to think of it in a light that was a better time for him, and stuff like that, and like Jeff was saying again, pray that he, toward the end there, because we don't know. We haven't seen him much and stuff like that. So pray that toward the end he made peace, and he repented, and he did. If he did indeed find God, then hopefully that got him through, and stuff. So yeah, that's all you can really hope for. And again, my heart goes out to his family and to his friends. That's they're the people who have lost a dad, lost a husband, lost whatever it is. They're the people who are suffering now, and they're the ones that I feel for. So
Right.
Yeah, let's go.
All right, let's do it.
I have my air conditioning on.
All right, so here's the burning question. I'll make this larger too so everyone can take a look at it. This person says, and I'll remove the comments real quick. I know people have their feelings about Hulk Hogan. I can't say that I blame anyone. I'm 25, so I didn't grow up with the Hogan era. How would you tell my generation to approach Hogan's complicated legacy?
Wow. It's an age-old question, right? Like this, Hulk Hogan is certainly not and won't be the last person that's ever had controversy in the wrestling business. There have been guys that have wrestled all throughout the years that have done some pretty lousy things. I would, obviously this is going to be, it's a personal question. More than anything, you have to kind of look inside yourself and ask yourself what your feelings are. You don't have to, you don't have to celebrate him if you feel that's the wrong thing to do. You don't have to like him. What I think I would say to your generation to approach his legacy would be is the legacy of him is what he's done for wrestling. That's how I have heard everybody talk about him. Like I said, Mark Henry, Bully Ray, others that have talked about him. We're talking about the things that he did for them. My God, The Rock. Did you guys see The Rock's post? The Rock being forever grateful to him for giving him the rub and putting him over on that match that night, and really just, I think, and The Rock said it too, making him into the superstar that he is now. So I think you have to look at it for the fact that, what he did for the business, how the business wouldn't be the same. We wouldn't, let's face it, we wouldn't be watching wrestling like we do today in the shape that it's in had it not been for him. And I'm not just talking about the Hulkamania version. I'm talking about the NWO version. Let's not forget about that and how that revolutionized wrestling as well. I mean, not only was Hogan one of the biggest faces ever to lace up boots, he was also one of the biggest heels to ever do it as well. And you don't see that very often. So I think you just have to look at it for what it was, and look at it for the profession, right? Professional wrestling. Look at what he did for the business, for professional wrestling, and how much different it would be without having him in it. And I think that's what I would tell you.
I would tell you, I feel like this is a good question. And I like the way that it's asked too, because I would tell you, like Joe, you have to come to your own conclusions.
Mm-hmm.
I personally, how I would tell you, if you want to take my advice or our advice, I would say do your best to separate the character Hulk Hogan from the man Terry Bollea. And you can appreciate one and not be a fan of the other. You can appreciate one and what they brought to the wrestling business, but be disgusted by what Terry Bollea said. And I think for all of us, because especially Joe, and this is kind of morbid to think about it this way, but as we get older, a lot of our other favorites have aged as well. And a lot of people that we've been fans of for many years are way older than we think. And we don't know what can happen, when it can happen.
Mm-hmm.
But every person, every human being is flawed. And I think it's up to us individually, because like Conrad said, it's personal. It's a personal decision. If you were offended like I was by the things that he said, it's okay to be offended. That's perfectly fine. You want to say whatever you want to say, that's fine. But I think to completely discredit one part of his legacy because he ruined it through another part of his personal life is not seeing the forest for the trees. And I get it. Racism is awful. There's no place for it in our world, period. But we also have to recognize that while this man was completely flawed, what he did for the business that we all love and why we still have people here on a Sunday night watching us when we've been talking for 2 hours. You got to remember his contributions. Doesn't mean that you got to accept the behavior or condone it. I certainly don't. But I think we have to understand that what Hulk Hogan, the character, did was incredible for the wrestling business. Terry Bollea, I hope he found the Lord. And that's where I'll leave it.
Yep. Yep. Ty Cobb is someone we celebrate as one of the greatest players, but he was also rotten and bigoted. And OJ, yeah. Listen, there's been a lot of examples, Dan, over the years.
Oh yeah.
A lot. We find out that people look. I've said countless times how big of a Kiss fan I am, but I can tell you that in more recent times, I've grown to be a much bigger Paul Stanley fan than I am a Gene Simmons fan. I get to see, the real people they're out there doing interviews and podcasts and all that. And Gene's kind of a jerk. And I always kind of worshipped him when I was a kid because I loved the makeup, the bat, the horror stuff that he portrayed. I love that. But now I'm starting to understand that Paul is just a better guy, I think. And that's a big departure from what I grew up liking, because you start to really see through people a little bit, especially when they age. And you see kind of some flaws that you just don't like. But yeah, it's it is a sad thing. And but yeah, it's it's like Jeff said, you sometimes you just have to separate when you look what they did. And I look at, and from that perspective, from the example that I just said, Gene and Paul were the two that made that group what it was. And Paul even says, looking at Gene, they wouldn't have been the same if Gene wasn't. And he said, in fact, Gene's makeup was the coolest of them all because he had the bat on his face and, the blood and all that kind of stuff. They wouldn't have been the same group without him. So,
so did you see this? I put it on screen what Conrad said, but did you see that the last WrestleMania main event with living participants is WrestleMania 12?
Wow, I did not. Wow, that's crazy, man. Wrestlers, I'll tell you what, and Mark Henry talked about this too, shorter and shorter careers and shorter lives. Mm-hmm. It is a very, very, very tough business on your body. And now look at, we know that in the past, a lot of them were, in the 80s and stuff like that, a lot of them were into steroids and things like that they were doing to their bodies. But they
were also running more back then.
Yep.
What they do now.
Yep.
And back then it was the steroid problem, but it was also like painkillers and stuff that, because a lot of them, because of who they were, and who they are, they were able to get certain medications like Tic Tacs.
Yeah. Yep. No doubt.
So.
Yep. No doubt.
All right. Now, are you ready to go to? I know this week is a little bit different, but go to our top 3 Hulk Hogan moments.
Yes.
So
we're gonna do this a little different. We usually do our favorite moments of the week, and you guys, if you guys want to do that in the chat, you're more than welcome to.
That's fine.
Yeah, you're more than welcome to. We'll still read them out. But yeah, we're just gonna go through some memories. That's really what it is. So we're gonna go through our top 3 Hulk Hogan memories that we have over, of course, his wrestling career. And you guys can do anything you want. If you'd rather do moments of the week, go right ahead and shout out your moments of the week too, whatever you want to do. But yeah, Jeff, what is your number 3 all-time Hulk Hogan moments?
My number 3, and this is crazy that you have to think of only 3 because he had so many moments.
Man,
But my number 3, and I guess this will tell you how things are starting. But my number 3 is when he went to WCW. Um, because at the time, WCW was more is seen more as like a regional thing, like a southern thing, and yeah, they had a lock on the southern states, but people felt like they didn't have enough big names and a big money draw to bring a national and global audience. And getting Hulk Hogan, although it didn't last as long as people had hoped, me included, because I was a huge WWE fan. I mean WCW fan. But him coming over there definitely shifted the balance of power for a little bit.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm going to tell you one of mine, and this can really be looked at as not even a Hogan moment, but holy God, Jeff, the first time that I really, as a Hulk Hogan fan back then, thinking that this guy was invincible until he met the Undertaker for the first time, and I'm like, oh my God, and I'm sitting there, and it was so for me. When I mean, The Undertaker blew my mind because I was such a big horror fan from that time as a kid. And then then I'm thinking like, Hogan's done, man. Hogan's done. He met his match. I mean, there's no way he's going to beat this dude. Like he's humongous. So when and I didn't honestly know who to root for. I didn't know who to root for because the Undertaker caught my attention so much that I'm like, oh, this guy is just amazing, dude. That long red hair and stuff. And when I first saw him in the Rumble, oh my God. That was about that was about when my Hulk Hogan thing started to kind of diminish a bit. But when those two met, I'm like, yeah, dude, man, Hogan's over. Hogan is absolutely over. But that was my number 3, just simply because I just remember it so well, and I remember just seeing that happen, and it was like, yeah, he's in big trouble. So that's my number 3. So let's see what we got in the chat. We have Brandon Ty Hulk going into the 2005 Hall of Fame and winning the WCW Heavyweight Championship in his debut '94 Bash at the Beach. Big Dan Hulk Hogan training Mean Gene for the tag team match against George Steele and Mr. Fuji because it highlighted the comic chemistry and friendship between the two of them. Okay. Top 3 moments in wrestling in general would be TNA Slammiversary. But top 3 Hogan moment, number 3, seeing Hogan live in SLC. See, that is one thing I never got to see. I never got to see him in a wrestling show live. Never got to see that. And I kind of wish now that I would have at some point. Yeah. But I never did. Damien saying his number 3 moment of the week, Jakara Jackson, Mara Sade's TNA debut. Nice. Okay. Number 3 for me, I would think it would be when Hogan versus the Iron Sheik. So when he beat Sheik for the title. Yeah, I watched that. Yep. My number 3 Hogan moment was Hulk Hogan body slamming Andre the Giant and pulling out the improbable upset victory.
You might hear that one again.
I think you probably will, yes. It's a pretty good bet. Yeah. Yeah. Pretty good bet. So, all right, let's go to our number 2s. Jeff, what do you have as your number 2?
My number 2, the heel turn. NWO being created. Hogan being the third guy. As a WCW fan, I went from being like, man, I'm really glad Hulk Hogan is here to, man, I wish I was there at Bash at the Beach so I could throw something at him. But no, just that moment and what it did for wrestling and what it did for a while for WCW, although they basically turned it into a participation trophy. And everyone on the roster became a part of NWO at some point almost. They had NWO themed pay-per-views, which, okay. But yeah, that moment though, him dropping that leg on Macho Man and joining up with Hall and Nash, that was quite a moment.
Jeff and I are going to have the exact same 2-1. Like, I know it already. Look, that particular thing, right? I never saw that coming. I never saw that coming. That is one of the biggest surprises that I've ever been treated to in a wrestling show. I did not see that coming. And that's why I always say how cool it was when we did not have all these freaking spoilers everywhere, because no one knew. And it was my jaw dropped when I saw this happen. Hall and Nash, I was following that story since it started. And who was it going to be? Who was that third member going to be? And then you're wondering whether there would be a third member. And then all of a sudden you see Hogan come down and you're like, and I'm marking out thinking he's going to help Savage. He's coming down. He's going to help Savage. And when I saw him turn, I was like, what? And I was going crazy. I'm like, there's no way. He's the third member? And then the crowd throwing all that junk into the ring. I have never seen anything like that. Never, ever seen anything like that. And that was the birth of one of the coolest factions ever done. I had an NWO shirt within 2 weeks of that. And him coming out to the Jimi Hendrix thing. Oh, my God. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And think about this, guys, and you're allowed to be sad about this. You will never, ever, ever see anything like that again, because of all the bullshit that we get from these people that like to ruin everything.
Yeah.
You will never see anything like it again. It was amazing.
Get a tweet. Please click on my link to pay $5 to read my article about how so-and-so is going to do the biggest heel turn in the history of wrestling.
Yeah, right? Yeah. You will never, ever, ever see anything like that again.
Yeah. What Conrad asked me this, and I don't want to crap on Disco Inferno, but once they added Disco mix, I was like, okay, everybody is getting in this group now. But I was a lot different from everybody else. I only wanted it to be like the three of them plus Eric Bischoff.
Yeah, I agree.
Started adding like all these other people. It just it watered it down to me. But
yeah, once they started bringing in like Macho Man, Bret Hart,
Lex Luger, and everybody else, it's like, okay,
yeah,
all right, we get it. And I want to say this too. I so agree with Conrad's statement. Heenan's line did not ruin the moment. I completely agree. Heenan had been on to Hogan for years.
Oh, yeah.
He didn't like Hogan for years.
He hated him. Yeah.
So him saying, well, whose side is he on? That was in character. That was something that you'd hear from Bobby the Brain anytime. So, no, it did not ruin that moment at all.
Nope.
At all.
Nope. No, I think it actually added to the moment.
I do too.
Yeah.
I do too. Because you're like, there's no way, Brain.
Nope.
You just don't like him. And then when you say it, it's like, oh crap, Brain was right. What else was he right about? So,
I just thought that was Heenan being Heenan.
Heenan was being Heenan. That's all it was.
Because he hated Hogan so much.
That's it.
So, yep.
That's it.
100%. All right, let's see what we got for twos, and then we'll go to one.
Yep.
Number 2, Andre Slam tied with appearance as Thunder Lips. Let's see. We got a Hogan heel turn for number 2. Hogan moment. Hogan aligning with the NWO. Let's see. Number 2, Hogan versus the Ultimate Warrior. For wrestling fans, it was like Batman and Superman fighting, and Hogan's reaction to losing was great, with even his mortal enemy, Jesse Ventura, putting him over. Damien's number 2 moment of the week was Sheamus and Rusev from this past Monday Night's Raw. Nice. That's something different. My number 2, January 1984, defeating the Iron Sheik. That became the birth of Hulkamania. The core three, Hogan, Hall, and Nash, and the NWO was perfect. Maybe adding X-Pac at best. Six and Conan added a cool factor. Yeah, I'm okay with X-Pac in there. Yeah, that made sense.
Yeah.
So, all right. We're going to number one.
I know where we're going.
I think I do too.
But I have a 1A and a 1B. So
Okay.
my 1A, Joe, is obviously the slam heard around the world.
Yeah.
Man, growing up, and I know it was like this for you too, growing up at that time, seeing Andre the Giant, he was unbeatable.
Yep.
Seeing him down at all was darn near unheard of. Seeing anyone pick him up and slam him.
Yep.
And then you get the moment. You get Hulk Hogan picking him up and slamming him, and the crowd goes crazy. As a kid, I'm thinking, like, how in the world did he pick up this dude that, you know, in my brain as a kid, I'm thinking the dude's like 2,000 pounds and 12 feet tall. But, you know, like, how did he lift this guy up? And it was such a great moment because it goes back to how he did the whole thing of how he did the whole thing of hulking up like he would always do and getting the crowd involved. And yeah, it was that's my 1A. My 1B, and this is me talking more about the human side. But my 1B is him finding Christ, and I just hope and pray that relationship was still where it needed to be at the end. And you know, I mean, again, everybody's got their stuff, and I hope that he repented for his and realizes that he hurt a lot of people, and yeah, before he left us. But that's my 1B, is just being happy that he found Christ. So
yeah, look, my number one was something I started this show with. I will never forget WrestleMania 3, not just for the Hogan match, but for the whole entire thing. It was the first pay-per-view I was allowed to ever watch without having to wait till it came out in the video stores like 6 months later. Because my dad decided to fork over the $100 and buy that little tiny silver gadget that would go on your cable that would allow you to watch it. And I had friends over, and it was like a little mini party, and I will never forget it. Me and my friends sitting there and gasping when Hogan got him up. And we're like, there's no way. Because you saw it earlier in the match when he first tried it, and he just crumbled. And because, like Jeff was saying earlier, Andre did get, like Conrad brought up, Andre was slammed before. And I was lucky enough to see him in house shows. I saw him in a house show in a very, very tiny little gym that was near me. And he was slammed in that match. So he'd been slammed before, but not with this kind of
that kind of crowd.
Yeah. And when he got him up, me and my friends are like we're looking at TV like, what? Like, and we couldn't believe it. And now again, we didn't know the truth then. We didn't know that Andre had been very sick. We didn't know any of that. I found that out much later. But, you know, and the fact that, again, you're seeing a guy in Andre putting over Hulk Hogan because he knew that Hulk was going to be the guy. And this is what wrestlers do to this day. And so to me, I'll never forget that. That entire pay-per-view, if you would ask me what my biggest pay-per-views are, that would still probably be in my top 3, maybe my top 2 that I've ever seen. And a lot of it was because of that. Because
Joe,
I grew up watching Andre, and to see
Joe,
him get beat. Go ahead.
you know what we should do? We did WrestleMania 10.
A watch
Maybe
along for 3.
Maybe we can do a retro watch along for 3.
That'd be fun. I haven't seen it in years. Yeah, that'd be
Me
something.
either. And I'm trying to remember the card for that one. Was that one the one where it was Steamboat and was it Jake in that one or Macho?
Steamboat and was it Jake the Snake? I think it might have been Jake the Snake. Right? I'm gonna have to look it up now real quick.
Yeah,
you're good. Let me see.
I know this as a Steamboat fan, but
Here I have it.
Macho.
Macho Man, yeah.
Macho.
Yep.
Because that's when he had George the Animal Steel.
Yes. Yep. Who I also loved when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man. That'd be cool. Yeah, that might be something we could do at some point. That'd be fun.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it in so long, but yeah, that's for sure my number 1. All right, so let's see if we got some people's number 1s here, and then we're gonna close her out. Let's see. No apologies for no Hulk Hogan moments. I just didn't see that much, and that's all good, Damien. You don't have to apologize, dude.
Not at all.
Number 1 moment of the week, Wyatt Six getting a PLE match finally after debuting over a year ago. Yeah, it was very cool. Very, very cool moment. Number 1 was the Hogan heel turn. Hogan joining the NWO. For us Gen Xers, it was like Optimus Prime joining the Decepticons. Bobby Heenan, who was a rat bastard heel for years, turned babyface by default and helped reinvent him. My number 1, WrestleMania 3 in Pontiac Silverdome in front of 93,173. The body slam heard around the world. Yeah, dude. Yeah, it was just amazing moment in wrestling. Number 1 for Andrew, Clash of the Eras match between Hogan and The Rock. That was a great one. That was awesome. Very, very confusing match because you thought Hogan was coming in as the clear heel, and there were times during that when people turned on The Rock. That was an insane match. I remember watching that with my friends, and we did not know how to feel in that match. We had no idea. And now when you hear them talk about it, The Rock comes out and says they were just going by what the crowd reaction was. Mm-hmm. And The Rock kind of turned it around. And then Hogan kind of gave him the rub at the end. But yeah, that was just a crazy match to watch. He did it in WWE 1980 Shea Stadium. And another favorite of mine was WrestleMania. It was JYD and Harley Race. Oh, man, Junkyard Dog. Yeah, I was sad when he lost that match.
I was too, man. I was so upset. I was so mad because
I love Junkyard Dog.
JYD was a man.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, and I hated Harley Race. All right, well, there you go. JYD was second only to Hogan in terms of popularity during the mid-'80s.
Very true.